I've recently reacted to some very popular Protestant apologists on YouTube. Having reacted to a lot of their videos, these three, in my humble opinion, are the Protestants most likely to convert to Catholicism. You have to stay until number one, as you will be shocked. And I would like for you to give me some feedback on my list. So let me know in the comments. Am I right? Am I crazy? Let me know. But before we start, please like, subscribe, and consider joining the locals member club on my channel. Support my channel, helps feed my kids. I appreciate it. This video is not, I repeat, not an attempt to proselytize or convince these three to become Catholic. I am simply guessing based on observance who is most properly disposed to converting to Catholicism. Here we go. Number 3, Redeemed Zoomer. I love Redeemed Zoomer. Okay. I reacted to one of his videos. It was on the biblical canon about 2 weeks ago. He messaged me, or commented rather, and then we exchanged X handles. So we follow each other on X or Twitter, and we've messaged each other. But what I like about Redeemed Zoomer, he's only 24, 25. He's the Gen Z generation, hence the name Redeemed Zoomer. And he has over 500,000 subscribers to my 12. He has a few more years on me, but nonetheless, he acts as if he had only 500 subscribers in the way that he treats every single person that he interacts and dialogues with. I've seen him in debates against some of the harshest, non-Protestants, and he just takes it like an ecumenical champ with love, courtesy, and cordiality. Redeemed Zoomer, so he's a Protestant, but he's a Presbyterian, right? Of the Presbyterian Church USA. A lot of his videos, he will play Minecraft while talking or interacting with other people about the faith, about apologetics, theology, church history, stuff like that. So kind of a novel thing, in my opinion. That's probably why he has 500,000 subscribers. But in his bio, he says that he completely opposes the theological liberalism and progressivism that has hijacked the PCUSA. That's the Presbyterian Church of the USA. So his mission is to restore it. His theology is Reformed Calvinist, but this is his words. I am very ecumenical and open to learning from other Christian traditions. Now, he doesn't just say that. That's the way he acts. And I will show you from a clip. This is with Trent Horn almost a year ago, where they got together and they discussed Calvinism and Catholicism. And they went back and forth, dialoguing, asking and answering questions. So this is why I'll show you. I think Redeemed Zoomer at least is disposed to becoming Catholic. It's just a matter of when. Again, I'm not convincing or proselytizing. Here we go. So this is Trent Horn. I don't know where they're at here, but yeah, again, like I said, this was about a year ago. And they just got done talking about sola fide, or faith alone salvation, and then they're going to talk about invincible ignorance within the Catholic Church and those outside of it.
The invincible ignorance argument is what gets brought up most commonly. It's like, oh, if you're the old Baptist grandma who loves Jesus but just doesn't know any theology, any differences between the denominations, has no idea what the Catholic Church is, they'll be like, yeah, she's fine. But what about people who are like scholars? What about
Right.
Protestant scholars who read all the best presentations of Catholic arguments? People
Right.
who read Bellarmine,
Right.
people who read the Canons of Trent and the Second. What about
Right.
those people who still come to the conclusion that Protestantism is true, or maybe that something else
Right.
is true?
Well, I think the answer to that would be similar to what do you do about extremely intelligent atheists? So people like Graham Oppy, who is done extensive treatises on arguments for and against the existence of God. Is God just going to damn someone because they have made a cognitive error about the nature of the truth? So I would say that the understanding of what is invincible ignorance, ignorance one cannot overcome because of some kind of a circumstance, I would just be very leery about raising that bar too high for one's theology, and that how we apply it to the case of well informed non Christians, I would say there's a parallel to applying it to well informed non Catholics.
Right. I mean, generally the Calvinist understanding is if someone is elect, they're going to have faith. So he'd say, yeah, if an
Right.
intelligent atheist, even if they do a lot of study, yeah, it's too bad for them. And we would say that we can't really assume that someone can be saved just because they haven't heard about it.
Mhm.
So it's like if you're using the invincible ignorance
Right.
argument, doesn't that make it safer to not investigate Catholicism? Because what if you do investigate it and you are presented with the arguments and you still don't come to the conclusion that it's true? Isn't it better to just remain ignorant and remain just to be the casual,
Mhm.
not casual, but just remain the Baptist grandmother type who
Right.
focuses more on just the
Mhm.
personal devotion aspects of the
Right.
faith and not the scholarly argument?
All right. So if you notice how well he carried himself, how kind he was, how well he listens to Trent, right? It's so respectful, it's so ecumenical. And Redeemed Zoomer is, again, like I said, I think he's 24, 25, and he's asking questions that a theologian would ask, right? They're very good, critical questions to ask. So if you guys don't know, invincible ignorance, right? The Catholic Church teaches that those outside of the Catholic Church, of the jurisdiction of the Catholic Church, right, through no fault of their own, right, may attain salvation if they cooperate with the graces that are afforded to them and they live in virtue. But it has to be an ignorance that is invincible. Now, I am not one to criticize Trent Horn, okay? That dude is not on my level. I mean, I'm not on his level, okay? So but I wish you would have talked about culpable or vincible ignorance, because there Redeemed Zoomer just said, well, wouldn't it be a detriment to actually investigate Catholicism? Because in that sense, you couldn't play the invincible ignorant card, because here's all the knowledge and you're saturated with it. And what's your excuse? And he's right, because there is such a thing as culpable ignorance. So, such a good question by Redeemed Zoomer. Trent Horn, I'm not saying he's wrong. I would have answered it differently. That's the beauty of Catholicism. But so Redeemed Zoomer, please subscribe to his channel. He's an amazing person. Again, I'm not trying to convince him or say that he will. I just think if there were three, he's number three to convert to Catholicism. Okay. Redeemed Zoomer. He is the man. Okay. Who's number two? Numero dos? Any guesses? Gospel Simplicity. Austin. Austin from Gospel Simplicity. Okay. So I have an actual funny story with this. So let me just give you a little bio of Austin's channel, Gospel Simplicity. I believe he started 6 years ago, but nonetheless. So he began this YouTube channel as either an undergrad or graduate student at Moody Bible Institute. So he's a Protestant, right? So he was born out of the central conviction that the gospel is really good news, and he wanted to share that with as many people as possible. His channel has grown and changed over time, but that central conviction has never changed. Today, we make content around biblical and theological topics, often interacting with people from across the Christian tradition, with the hope of seeking greater unity and introducing people to the beautiful simplicity and transformative power of the gospel, the good news about Jesus. Now, if you're not aware, Austin at Gospel Simplicity is just as ecumenical, if not more, than Redeemed Zoomer. I'm not trying to, compare and contrast and who's better at what, but Austin will have people from almost every Christian tradition on his channel, and has. So as a Protestant, he's had Eastern Orthodox priests, he's had Catholic priests, he's had pastors from different Christian Protestant denominations, right? He's interviewed all of these ministers from different faith traditions, and he himself has told his audience or his YouTube channel, right, that he has actually grown and appreciated more things out of, say, Catholicism or Orthodoxy. And everyone on his channel is like, why aren't you Catholic? Why aren't you Eastern Orthodoxy? You should never ask someone that question, okay? It's just patronizing. I know there's no ill intent in that, asking that question, but he is such, oh my gosh, so humble, so meek, so respectful, but so ecumenical, like he said in his bio. So I'm going to play a clip, and this is from almost 5 years ago, so maybe a year after he started. He's got almost, I think, 80 or 90,000 subscribers right now. So he's getting up there. He's almost at 100K to my 12,000 or whatever. So Austin, right, came out with a video. Here, I'll share my screen. He came out with a video 4.5 years ago, and the title of it is is sola fide biblical? And what he did for 23 minutes was he exegeted from James 2:1 to 13, and then James 2:14 through 26. And he brought up the differences of interpretation that the Catholics have and the Protestants. And he was very well balanced and fair minded, open and honest, and all that stuff. But I'm going to play a clip, and this is kind of just a taste of Austin's integrity, right? And ecumenism that really shines forth here, and why I think he's disposed of becoming Catholic. But again, I would never convince him or try to convince him of becoming Catholic.
Now, granted, one of my biggest pet peeves in theological conversations, I don't want to call this a debate necessarily, but in theological dialogues between people who disagree, is just throwing a proof text and saying, boom, you're wrong. In which case, we see that all the time on both sides, albeit Protestants might be a little more notorious for it, but I've really seen it from Catholics, Protestants alike, that it's like, a Catholic will put up this, boom, justification by faith alone is wrong, and a Protestant will put up Romans 3:28 and say, boom, you are justified by faith outside of works of the law, so what, we're right, you're wrong. And really, it's just not a very intellectual way of going about it. So if you're in the comments, let's just avoid doing that.
So what's awesome about that is he's a Protestant. He just admitted that Protestants are more notorious for just citing one single verse as a proof text to justify their position and to demolish their opponent's position. And he's saying that they're doing it more than Catholics, right? You know how much humility it takes to admit something like that, right? So here's the funny thing. I told you it's going to be kind of a funny little thing. I'm going to share the screen again. So this video, right? I had no idea who this guy was. So this is, guys, I just started my YouTube content channel 7 months ago. I don't know, 7 months ago, right? This was 4.5 years ago. I didn't know even how to make a video, let alone have a channel. So, but I'm scrolling on YouTube, and this guy, this Austin Gospel Simplicity, comes up, and it's on James 2 or Sola Fide. And I'm like, I'm going to crush this kid. Okay. He's rather young. He's probably 20 years younger than me. I don't know. But I'm going to annihilate him on James 2, right? In the comment section. But I watched the entire video in that clip that I showed you, and I'm like, this guy, his heart is in the right place. Just give him time. And so I will prove to you, I'll share my screen. This is the comment I made. It's still up on this channel right here. 4 years ago. It was actually about 4.5 years ago, because as you know, like YouTube, they don't do 4.5 or 4.6 years ago. It just rounds it or whatever. So this is in 2020, right? I remember this distinctly. And this is what I said to him, and I meant it. I said, brother, I am not a Protestant Christian, but I cannot help but commend you on your sincerity in being fair, honest, and very seemingly open-minded and open-hearted. Although I do disagree with you on a few points towards the end of the video, I'm pleased to see such a genuine desire for real unity without compromising the truth. Charitable and constructive dialogue is from the Holy Spirit, and I will subscribe to your channel. Your heart is in the right place. And then he responds, thank you so much, Eric. I really appreciate this. I'm grateful to have you as a part of the community here on this channel. So, Gospel Simplicity. Please go subscribe to his channel. Watch some of his interviews. He's interviewed some of the best priests, both Orthodox and Catholic. Very edifying. But more than that, he's a very humble, meek, honest person, very ecumenical, that I think has all the necessary dispositions to one day become Catholic. Again, I'm not trying to convince him. I'm not trying to tell him to be Catholic, but in my humble opinion, that's what I think. Number one, the most shocking claim that I've ever made on this channel. I want you guys, I wish I was doing this live. I'm not. I'm recording this, but I could just see it. That the wheels are turning. Maybe you're like, oh, I want to comment. Who is it? Who is it? I bet it's this person. Now, before you get a little irritated or maybe upset that it's not your number one, you have to let me make my case. Okay. So number one is James White. Okay, James White. James White has been involved in apologetics and theological studies, right? He's got his doctorate. He does scholarly research. He's not just some mere apologist, but he's done 190 something public moderated debates, Catholics, Muslims, Jehovah's Witnesses, and other Protestant traditions, right? And he's got his own YouTube channel. He's written, I don't know, a dozen books, et cetera, et cetera. So he's well renowned in his field and what he's done for the past 35 years. Okay, so he is a pastor at Apologia Church in Mesa, Arizona. Okay, he's a Reformed Baptist theologian, so he will claim to be a 5-point Calvinist. And yeah, he's a Christian scholar, and he's been at this for a very long time. Now, Dr. James White, it's interesting, his sister converted to Catholicism, I think in the early 2000s. And without speculating, I'm assuming he didn't appreciate that too much because James White has come off as rather staunchly anti-Catholic, especially in his debates, right? So, why on earth would I have Dr. James White as the number one person who's going to convert to Catholicism, or at least most disposed to? It goes back to St. Paul, and this is not to be a patronizing comparison or analogy for James White. I'm not trying to say he was Saul murdering Christians, but our blessed Lord says, and again, I'm not insinuating that Dr. James White is a huge sinner. Our blessed Lord said the greatest sinners have the greatest right to his divine mercy, and some of the greatest sinners will convert. Again, I'm not saying that's Dr. James White, but the analogy in his how far removed he is from Catholicism and his views on Catholicism, I think that our Lord and Our Lady will give him the graces, and I think he will eventually convert. Now, I am going to show you a clip from a debate, recent debate. I believe it was back last year in July, so 2024 July, between Dr. James White and Alex from Voice of Reason. Okay. They both did well. Okay. I'm impartial right now during this video. They both did well. I mean, James White is an amazing debater, regardless of the content, right? Regardless of what he's arguing for or against, right? He's a good debater. So I'm going to play this clip for you, and this is why I think Dr. James White is the number one apologist, Protestant, that's going to convert to Catholicism.
Before you start that timer, Alex, I'm enjoying this.
Me too, Dr.
Really,
Dr. White.
really appreciate you
Dr.
being.
White, thank you so much. This is one of the biggest honors of my life. I've been watching this man for almost 10 years, and the fact that I'm on stage with him, I'm gonna cry. This is, I'm very spoiled. So thank you guys so much.
Yeah, I started doing this before he was born. So
born.
it's like, and I'm enjoying it.
But we both have back problems, so at least we're.
So, if you know Dr. James White and his history of debating Catholics since the early 90s, okay? Jerry Matitix, Robert Sungenis, Father Mitch Pacwa, Tim Staples, Patrick Madrid, it goes on and on and on. You will know that Father James White isn't too fond, I wouldn't say of Catholics, but of Catholicism, but by extension, the way that his interlocutors have treated Dr. James White, the Catholic ones, I'm really not all that surprised that Dr. James White is what he is. Because you got to remember when you're debating, this is why I don't like debates, okay? At least moderated, okay, who won, all that stuff. You got to remember, you're not there to win an argument or a debate. You're there to save a soul, to convert a soul, right? That's what you're doing. Now, obviously, you want to still debate on the truth. So, truth and love. But what I've seen in a lot of debates against Dr. James White from Catholics is not a lot of love. Okay. And I'm not pointing fingers at anyone, but that's just going to push him further away. Now, given all that background and context, For James White, I don't care who the Catholic is, okay? I don't care if it's St. Teresa of Calcutta sitting there. For James White to pause and say, can you just hold on a second? And to go over to Alex, to shake his hand, and to wrap your arm around him is the most miraculous thing I've seen in a long time. That was a straight up miracle, considering what has transpired over the last 35 years with James White and Catholics. Okay. Again, that doesn't mean he's agreeing or acquiescing to Catholic doctrine, but for him to do that, something I think softened his heart right there in that moment. And it was Alex, because Alex, when he does stuff, right, he does it, it's based on love and humility. It's based on that. Then let's get to debate and let me present my case and speak the truth of the Catholic Church. But so many other debaters or Catholics, they have it backwards. And that's not, it doesn't work that way. The only other person that debated James White that had a similar effect on James White was Father Mitchell Pacwa, the Jesuit. And he will explain that. Dr. James White will mention that over and over again. He's the only one. And if you go back to the debates against Dr. White and Father Mitchell Pacwa, just watch how Father Mitchell Pacwa treats Dr. James White as a human being made in the image of God, and how he talks to him, how he looks at him, how he asks questions. It's done out of sincere love. And Alex is the only other person that I've seen do that with James White. So I think if Dr. James White converts, it's because of Alex from the Voice of Reason and Father Mitchell Pacwa. Guaranteed. You heard it here first, okay? If Dr. James White actually converts to Catholicism and the whole world goes mad, remember this video. Remember this video. Like, I should get something for this, right? Okay, so that's all I have. So again, number 3 rather. Redeem Zoomer, please go subscribe to his channel. Number 2 is Gospel Simplicity. That's Austin. Go subscribe to his channel and watch his stuff. And number 1 is Dr. James White. Those are the top 3 Protestant apologists that I think are most disposed and likely to convert to Catholicism. But we should never proselytize or convince anybody. It's a work of the Holy Spirit. I love you guys. Praise be Jesus and Mary, now and forever. Thank you for liking and subscribing.